Hello everyone, welcome to Longarming by Jaclyn. So I went to edit my video for the next Joy Sewing series, which will be block 6, which is tiny frames, and I had no footage at all. All I had was stills from the piecing party. So we're going to do the tutorial today and splice in some stills from the piecing party, and we'll see block number 6, tiny frames. This is part of Joy Sewing. Alright, so let's see how this block comes together. Okay, so I know we're doing improv and it's no planned colorway and whatever, but for this particular block, you do want to put a little bit of thought and time into playing with your scraps and grouping them into color groups. So you'll need a small scrap that is what I'm going to call your chip, which is your center little area of the tiny frame. And this color should have some kind of contrast to your outer color group. And this is not any one color, but it's kind of a group. So when you look at these scraps that I have just dug out of my scrap bin, you can see there's definitely a theme and a pattern that says, oh yes, I see, my eyeball can tell how these colors go together. So you want to assemble some scraps that have a similar colored theme, and then a small scrap that is going to be the center that has some contrast to this outer group. When you go to use these mini frames in your quilt, you won't pay any attention to the center color. You'll be looking at it as if it is this color. So this is kind of a pale minty green group, and everything here has got this pale minty green vibe, and that's going to be my outer frame. And then I've got a group here that is some grays, different fabrics. This one kind of looks like the night sky. This might be, there was a fabric made by an astronaut who used images that she took from space and had them made into fabric. I think this might be her line, and I apologize, I don't know her name. There's a simple dot. This is kind of, it's got circles of dots on there. So these are all kind of in that gray family. And I am going to use a piece of this yellow as the chip in the middle. And then this yellow will also be used in my yellow frame. So these fabrics are all different, but they're all clearly kind of in that yellow family. And I'll be using this sort of teal for my chip in the middle. And then I'm doing kind of a dark green. I'm going to see how I like this one. I might do one with it and see if it's dark enough. And dark greens. This is some leftover binding. This is actually also leftover binding strips. And I might include this bluish one in there, but I think maybe too much blue. So I'll look at that. Maybe I'll make one with it and see if I like it. And then this floral is going to be the chip in the middle. So you can see none of these fabrics are alike, and I haven't coordinated them. They're not the same in sophistication level, they're not the same fabric, they're not from the same line, but I did kind of build a little theme for each one, and I didn't fuss too much over what the chip was in the middle, just different enough that it doesn't all blend across and look like one big block. So we'll be cutting a center chip. This is a small scrap. And I would make this, don't fuss too much about the exact size and shape, but smallish and 4 straight sides is going to make your job easier. So a small square or a small rectangle. So I'll be pressing these and cutting these down like that. And then your outer fabric, when you put your first side on, it could be quite short. So you can use smalls, but also your strip scrap is a good option when you're digging this out. So I've got a couple of rulers that don't have any numbers on them. This is for long arming and it's a straight edge. And then I also have one that's just so old the numbers are worn off. And for something like this, I encourage people to not obsess over it. And I find that when people use a regular ruler in the piecing parties, that whether they mean to or not, they're measuring and they're lining up the straight edges, and it kind of gets away from the whole improv effect. This is meant to be easy. So all you need is a straight edge. That is it. And we're just going to clean these edges up so they're nice and clean and sewable. And I am not paying attention to how big this is. And I am not paying attention to whether that's a perfectly right angle. So I'm not doing a specific measurement. I'm not saying, oh, this has to be 1 inch. I'm not trying to line up the sides with my ruler. I'm just making a small center chip. It's got 4 clean sides. It's vaguely, I guess, square or rectangle-ish, but that's not a perfect square and it's not meant to be. I just want something small. And depending on the scale of your quilt, you might go even smaller than that. So there's no dimensions, there's no angles squaring up. You're just literally cleaning a straight edge on the sides. So all I need for this piece is long enough to cover my side. And I'm just gonna go around this chip and cover my sides. So I'm just gonna cut this long dangly strip down to something more manageable. I'm not trying to get it exact. I just don't want to deal with that big long tail going back and forth to the machine. And I'm going to get rid of that pinked edge and sew it on my first side. So this block starts suspiciously like your wonky log cabin. You'll be doing 1 lap in all the same color group and stopping there. But that's really very similar to your wonky log cabin. So building off things we already know. I don't know if this feels dark enough to me to be in that same color group. Which one would you go with? Do you think this is close enough to that color group to fit in? Or would you go ahead and do a repeat to make it darker? Also, for the tiny frames, I do want to do a shout out. The originator of sort of this general idea of making these little pixels with the chip inside is Terry Rowland. I want to say she's Chatterbox Quilts. Let me fact check that for you. But I do want to give a shout out. The series of Joy Sewing is mine. However, this individual unit came from Terry Rowland, and there's lots of people out there doing different challenges and ideas based on quilts made entirely of this. So I do encourage you to check her out, check out all the videos that have hashtagged her, and get some inspiration and see how these come together for other people. So there we are. These are our tiny frames. So what you'll do is play with this particular block, get a big stack of them, and later when we're putting together our quilt, you'll find ways to assemble these. And some people have done like a color gradient, sort of moving through the rainbow. You can make pictures using this outer frame color as the color and kind of ignore the chip inside. I think what I might do is put them all in a row and make a long skinny, like a border or a stripe, like wainscoting through the quilt. But anyway, we'll see. It'll all come together on the design wall and we'll figure it out then. Thank you for joining me at Longarming by Jaclyn, doing our tiny frames. This has been block 6 of Joy Sewing. I hope you're sewing along. If you're just now seeing this video, all of the videos are on the Joy Sewing playlist, blocks 1 through 6. We're gonna do a few more blocks and techniques and then start to put all of these wonky improv pieces that we've built together on the design wall and show how to bring them all together into a cohesive unit with a few options there. So I'd really love for you to sew along. I'd really love for you to tell me which of these blocks are interesting and fun to you. What's something different that you wouldn't normally do? You wouldn't maybe commit to a whole pattern. or a whole quilt of something, but a little touch of it, maybe it was interesting, maybe it was fun. And I'd really like to see your creations that you come up with in the end, because they're all going to be different. This is going to be a real experience to see. It's going to depend on what kind of scraps are in your scrap heap and which these blocks did you really love and make a lot of. Some of them are bigger, so they'll fill up more real estate on your final quilt. And I think we're going to learn some fun techniques, and I think it's going to be a fun adventure, and you're going to end up with something, and then maybe it was just an exercise for you, and the finished quilt that you end up with is a gift for someone that's maybe not super quilt worthy, but is scrap quilt worthy, and they'll really appreciate it and think that you spent a huge amount of time designing a custom pattern for them. All right, thank you for joining Longarming by Jaclyn. We'll see you next week for another mystery block in the Joy Sewing series, and I hope you follow along. I hope you post pictures. It's hashtag Longarming by Jaclyn, hashtag LBJ, which is Longarming by Jaclyn, _ Joy Sewing, and I would love to see what you have cooking.